So I'm thinking, okay, how do I do that? I know I'll go on to Upwork and I'll put a brief up there. But I didn't know what I wanted. I haven't got the technical expertise, so I didn't know that I needed to ask for specific types of technology with what I was trying to build. So I ended up putting sort of quite a long-winded brief together that probably had quite a lot of ambiguity in it because I wasn't able to refine it down specifically enough at that point because I didn't have the knowledge to do it. And that's where ProBo comes in. If I'd had access to a ProBo at this stage of
Yo, this is Christian D. Evans with Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to our amazing podcast. This is where we reveal the top 1% of business concepts and systems and processes to scale 8 and 9 figure businesses. We interview top level 8 and 9 figure CEOs, business owners, and amazing TEDx speakers like David Meltzer. We got Nick Cavuto, Pascal Bachman, and so many others. And if you feel like this resonates with you, please share this with your friend, your family, and make sure you impact them as well, because we're trying to spread the message on those that do not know how to scale 8, 9 figure businesses and talking higher level business concepts. So guys, remember, enjoy the episode and be uncommon if you can. Cheers. Thank you so much for tuning in to Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. I'm your host, Christian D. Evans. One person, one network, one connection can help your business go to the next level. We have this amazing individual and the CEO and founder of ProBo.co, a massive, amazing community for small business owners to identify the problems that they're all facing and all come to that same solution and identifying and overcoming those situations. And the reason why I want to have him on is because that's how we take our business, our life, our network, and our net worth to the next level. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the one and only Rupert Lane. How you doing, my man?
Hi, Christian. Really good, thanks. And thanks very much for having me on.
Hey, I'm really excited about diving into this because just like I said, I think the network is the power of your net worth as well. And then also the power of like taking your business to the next level is a matter of your community and your network and really leveraging it. And before we dive into this, because I think this, before our podcast, you were telling me why you created ProBo.co. And I just thought it was really cool. If you could just share with our audience, how frustration, devastation can cause this beautiful company to arise. So if you could share our audience with the story and the background story behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, my background is not as an entrepreneur at all. I've done nearly 30 years in corporates, and during the pandemic, I was working in an industry that got really badly affected. I found myself out of work, so I decided to set myself up as a small business owner. But I didn't have very much experience of doing that, even though I've been in business for years. Because I think the skill set you have to employ when you're working for yourself, when you're starting something new, is completely different to what you might have done in corporate life. And I think the main difference is you've got to be an expert at everything, not just kind of what you're good at. So I set myself up, actually my background is sales. So I set myself up as a business development consultant, but I had to do all sorts of other things. I had to build myself a website. I had to work out how to legally register a business. I had all sorts of things like that. And I realized that I didn't have the skills to do it. So, when I was trying to do this, I was trying to cobble things together, and I was not doing it very well. I was a member of various professional communities, and I met a guy who was a professional website designer. And he looked at my website, the one the original one I'd done myself. I built it on Wix, and he said, "Look, I can give you a few hints and tips here about how you're going to make this more visible from an SEO point of view, and just give it a better chance of success." I had no idea that it wasn't, well, I knew it wasn't very good because I'm not very good at creating that kind of stuff. But, I had no idea how to improve it. And he spent about 10 minutes with me, giving me like 5 or 6 key pointers as to the things I could do to improve my success rate with the website. And that was worth gold to me, but cost him absolutely nothing. And so what I realized when I was doing this was that, during the pandemic, across communities around the world, people had come together to support each other, but actually it was spilling over into the professional world as well. And so, small business owners, I think, were looking out for each other a little bit more, were open to collaboration a little bit more. And I thought, well, there are places where small business owners do collaborate, and there are social media groups and individual businesses, but they're often in the form of forums and threads. which can become very confused and sometimes relatively confrontational. And actually, sometimes very often people end up trying to sell to you on them. And I thought, well, as a small business owner, when you're quite cash strapped, cash flow is everything. What you don't really need is someone trying to sell to you when you've got a problem. What you need is someone coming along and going, okay, I understand your problem. This is what you need to do about it. I'm not going to do it for you, but I can tell you how to do it. I can tell you how to do it quickly. And I thought, well, if you can find a way of harnessing that, that's absolute gold and gives all small business and therefore, the wider economy a much, much better chance of success.
I love that because, like you said, we are all facing these problems, these situations, and higher level individuals, and maybe just even kind of the same vertical could help you because, hey, they've already saw that solution, and vice versa. It's, hey, you know what? I know how to do SEO and I know how to do web design or email, and I know how to integrate that, right? And it's just being able to say, hey, I've got these skills and we can leverage and all grow together, like you mentioned. And like you said, it's not a matter of just monetization, but it's just, hey, I got this skill, you got that skill. Let's go ahead and collaborate and see how we can solve each other's problems. Now, Rupert, kind of explain a little bit like, that community, because the value of community is just beautiful right now. And what are you seeing in regards to like, just the connections, some of your community network that you've been able to see like grow because of this company you built?
Well, I think one of the really big challenges with starting a business is loneliness. I think you might have the world's greatest idea, but if you then go, okay, right, I'm going to give up the job that I'm doing, and I'm going to focus solely on this. You haven't got the money to pay people to start with, unless you have gone for funding. But if you're bootstrapping it yourself, you're going to be doing this alone, and that's a really lonely place to be. So I think community becomes really, really important to people who are doing that. There's the skill side of it, which is really useful. But someone saying to you, hey, it's okay that it's taking longer, or it's okay that you are having concerns about the fact that the business isn't going exactly as you want it to. Somebody to actually kind of understand that. And so if you can engage with people in a community that go, yeah, I've been there, I get it, you're on the right track, don't give up. Again, it's going to give your business a much better chance of success, but also it's really, really important from a mental health point of view, because I think there's a lot of solopreneurs, small business owners out there that really struggle with mental health purely because they don't have people around them going, it's okay.
100%, yeah. Because see, because it's such a solo journey, right? Nobody knows like the stress, the anxiety, the frustration, the annoyance that you face, and the sacrifices that you make. And nobody really cares, because even when you have employees, all they want to do is get paid. And if they don't get paid, then they're leaving, right? And it's not saying anything negative. It's like to the employees, but it's just a matter of fact. And so I really appreciate you sharing that. Now, one of the things I've learned is, the power of a community and the power of the network, right? Mm-hmm. So when they're looking at this community that you've built, how would you say effectively to leverage it to the fullest capacity so that we're engaging and we're able to solve those problems that we're facing in our business faster and quicker in collapsing timeframes?
Yeah, right. Okay, so social media is everyone has their communities on social media, but they're quite disparate. They're quite who but they don't know each other, and so it's a very, very loose community. The ProBo community is much tighter. People are there for a very, very specific reason. Two very specific reasons, and it's important that people embrace both of those reasons. The first one is, okay, you're running your business, you need help and advice on different areas, and you want to be able to engage with people in an area of trust, and on a one-to-one basis. Sometimes a lot of people out there who don't want to put stuff massively out into the public arena, and on ProBo you can do it privately. There's a messenger within there that you can do that. But the concept behind ProBo is it's embracing the sharing economy. So, the sharing economy has had a massive impact on, how we travel, where we stay. We share our homes with people, we share our cars with people. Why shouldn't that work in the same way for small business? But it works if you are prepared to give as much as you want to take. And that's the whole premise behind ProBo. Yeah, it's great. You go on there, you get the help and advice you need, and potentially can't afford to actually buy at the beginning of your startup journey. But really, really important, you're prepared to pay it forward as well, because you've got the skills that someone else out there within the ProBo community needs. And if you're not prepared to impart those, then you're not working truly in the spirit of the community. And that's what makes it community. I think, community only works if you give and take from it.
Well, you're saying something valuable, because so many times we think about, in order to find the who that knows how to do that XYZ product or, service or whatever, it's always about monetization, right? And the reality is, though, like I was mentioning earlier, like you were talking about, Rupert, is saying, hey, you know what? Let's collaborate and let's see, hey, you can solve this, I can solve this. And there's just this beautiful streamlined collaboration. And I just think it's really cool how you've been able to facilitate that relationship and that community for those, like you said, that are struggling with cash flow, right? And saying, okay, you know what? That's the number one problem. But it's like, you don't always need, you can be resourceful. And that's kind of what this group facilitates, is just resourcefulness.
That's it. And aside from that, when we help people, we get that shot of dopamine. People like to help people. Now we're all time starved. People are busy, especially if you're running a small business. But it can be, when I take it back to mental health again, actually, if somebody helps you, great, it helps your business and it helps mental health. If you help someone else and you see and you feel the difference that you've made to someone, that's going to have a positive impact on you mentally as well.
Yeah, exactly. And now let me ask you this, because you did bring up mental health quite a bit here. What are you seeing? I'm just, because you've talked to numerous small business owners that maybe low six figures, high six figures, maybe just pushing over the $1 million mark. Those are all small business owners. With mental health, why do you think it is such? What are you seeing in the industry right now, and what do you think is causing the increase of mental health awareness, if you will?
Okay. Well, I think that there is across all societies in the world, there is an increased awareness of mental health now. And I think, I think it's particularly prevalent amongst men who perhaps don't feel they can show their feelings as much. And, that leads to all sorts of problems that are very well documented in society. I think in the small business community, it's, the pandemic was very isolating for everybody. But I think particularly for a lot of small business owners who, over the last few years, small business owners have often collected in community, professional community areas to share and trade ideas and whatever. And it's those real water cooler moments that you can't organize. You won't, they only happen by chance. And I think the pandemic stopped them even happening by chance. And so I think small business owners became, very, very isolated, particularly if they were working on their own. It's interesting, you were talking a little bit about, if you're running a small business, you're employing people, you have people around you, but they're not empathizing with the problems that you're going through. Only somebody who's in the same position as you can empathize with what you're going through. And people stopped having direct access to those people during the pandemic. So I think, that has played a big part. I think the other thing is, certainly in the UK, we've seen a huge upswing in the number of people who've left corporate life and started their own businesses, which is amazing and fantastic and brilliant, that people have felt, okay, this is a real kind of life-changing moment for me, and I'm gonna change my life. But people go into that often not fully realizing what they're actually taking on. And that, the mental side of that is a big part of it. And so, it's just purely the scale of how many more small businesses we have in the world now that I think is probably increasing that as an issue. And therefore, the power of community again becomes really, really important.
Wow, and you're right, because I literally had someone that I was talking to earlier this week, or maybe last week, and he was talking a lot about how it's so hard to hire people, and the main reason is because a lot of them are leaving corporate America, just like you said, and kind of that side gig or gig economy a little bit, and they realize that, hey, if I have 1 or 2, 3 clients for my service, whatever it is, I'm making 100, 150, 200 G's, and I don't have to, I can enjoy life a little bit. But like you said as well, all of a sudden that does come with a whole bunch of heartache and a lot of frustration. It's like, I don't know what I don't know. And so there's that pain, that frustration. And I think this community, ProBo.co allows that, like we were just talking about, facilitates that relationship.
Right.
and like you said as well, it's like a lot of people just they're under, they have no idea on the value base. Now, let's talk a little bit about kind of like not just the network and the connection, but also the resources and the training that they get access to, being part of this community.
Sure. Okay. So if you go onto the ProBo site, you get asked to do a very short, simple, easy registration process where you just tell people a little bit about what your experience is and kind of places you've worked. Now, you can choose to divulge as much or as little as you want on that. That's your choice. But that gives you a profile page on the site, and what that means is that people can go onto your profile page and get you a little bit, and so decide whether you're the right person to interact or not. So once you've registered, you can then post any question you want. About the challenges that are going on in your business. And what happens then is you post that and it goes up on the main feed that everyone can see. And then people could choose to offer to respond to you on that. But unlike a lot of the forums out there, if someone posts a response to you, that won't go public immediately. Because then what happens is that comes to you, and if more than one person offers to engage with you, you can look through those people and go, okay, that person really has the experience that I'm looking for. That person maybe a little bit less, and you can choose who to engage with on that. If the response that you've got covers the question, then great, happy days. You hit the button that sends the response public, and that goes back into the public space, or it doesn't have to. Some people prefer, they don't want the solution to be publicly seen. But for a lot of people, it's going to be, okay, I'd really love to have a few more minutes engaging with this person. And so we've built a messenger system within ProBo that you can engage with any other member on there, pretty much like you do with WhatsApp. And you can go back and forth together as much as you want to, until you've finished the conversation. The one thing we do ask doesn't happen is that you don't actively sell your business and try and gain paid work out of it. But having said that, whenever you are demonstrating your skills and experience, you're marketing yourself. So, and what you're doing is you're engaging with a group of people that are building their businesses, and the successful ones of those are going to need the services that you provide in the future. So what better way of marketing your business than giving them a little bit of what you do for free, so that when they come back, when they've got the money to pay for this on a bigger scale, who they're going to think of?
Yeah, it's goodwill. It's 100% goodwill, because now all of a sudden you went out of your way to add value to them and vice versa.
Right.
And once you have that goodwill, that carries more weight than that just transactional, pay and so forth.
Right. Right.
I love that. I think that's really cool. And just that communication as well. Now, kind of help me understand, like, when they're walking into this, right? Someone that just came out of corporate America and they're just brand new and they want to understand how to leverage, some of these resources and stuff like that. What would you say are like certain, because sometimes what I've noticed is like people don't know what they don't know. And so I mean by that is that they don't know what questions to ask. They don't know where to even start. They don't know what to produce. And maybe they do to some extent, but then they spend money and resources or energy and time on the wrong thing, wrong activity. Right. So are there coaching calls where they have higher level individuals that are coming in and being able to build that relationship and, sharing, and walk me through that a little bit?
Okay, so that's really interesting in itself, because so ProBo doesn't exactly do that, but we're in the process of setting up a collaboration with a business that does. So watch this space on that one. But what you said right back there is you don't know what you don't know. And actually, I think that's the basis of what ProBo is all about. And I can use personal experience of doing this. So when I first decided to do this, I'm doing it on my own, I'm bootstrapping it, and I think, right, okay, I've got to get a proper sophisticated website set up here. It's not the sort of thing that I'm just going to build myself on WordPress or on Wix. I've got to get someone to do this for me. So I'm thinking, okay, how do I do that? I know, I'll go onto Upwork and I'll put a brief up there. But I didn't know what I wanted. I haven't got the technical expertise. So I didn't know that I needed to ask for specific types of technology with what I was trying to build. So I ended up putting sort of quite a long-winded brief together that probably had quite a lot of ambiguity in it, because I wasn't able to refine it down specifically enough at that point, because I didn't have the knowledge to do it. And that's where ProBo comes in. If I'd had access to a ProBo at this stage of doing it, I'd have gone out there and said, okay, look, this is what I'm trying to do. Is I'm trying to set up this community website. It needs to be interactive. It needs to have, the functionality for people to engage with each other. What are the, top 10 questions that I should be asking a developer? And if I'd had that, I'd have probably halved my development time of doing it, and actually probably cost as well, because I ended up having to flip from one developer to the next, because partly through my own fault, but through my own lack of experience. And that's what ProBo is about. ProBo is not designed to replace paid work. Absolutely not. People will not use it for, if that's what it's going to do, because kind of, we're all here for a reason, aren't we? We all need to make money. ProBo is there to fill that void between your own knowledge base and paid work, the bit in the middle, but that bit that is probably going to make the difference between long-term success and failure.
That's awesome. Yeah, because just like you said, I mean, it's that gap, right? It's
Yeah.
that gap to really being able to cash flow and then really scale your business at a high level. And sometimes we need as much help as possible, because like you said, cash flow is limited. Maybe resources are limited, but you have time and energy, right? And that's all you need. And then that's where you can come in, like you just said, and facilitate. And that community is already like-minded individuals, and really focusing on that, which is just beautiful, beautiful. Now, let me walk me through this as well. So it's like, you've got this incredible network, this amazing community. What are you seeing in the industry? Okay. And what I mean by the industry is like, okay, the frustration, the difficulty, like what are the one or two things that majority of them, most small business owners kind of are the biggest hurdles to really achieve that next level? And I'm not just talking about cash flow or lack thereof, because that's number one, but other things that you're noticing definitely being in this community.
Yeah, I think sales and marketing is a really big one, because there's so much noise out there. There's, if you go onto social media or anywhere else, there's so many, and I guess it's probably because there's so many more small businesses out there now. There's so much noise in terms of advertising, marketing, look at my business, that people get really overwhelmed by it. And I think the second thing is, a really, really good way of promoting your business in the early days is through social media. But social media in itself is a complete minefield. There's lots and lots of different channels out there. If you don't pick the right one, you're going to get zero traction. If you don't actually post something that's of value, you're going to get zero traction, because there is so much noise out there. So I think it's people, one of the big things I think is people understanding, okay, what does it take to build a customer base, a community? I think the best way to build a customer base is actually to build an online a social media community. People who are are actively interested in the things that you're talking about, things that you're discussing, and actually take notice of you. But and again, I've made my own mistakes on this one. I've realized that I started off on quite a few different social media channels, and there are two that are working for me. There are two that are getting traction, but it took me quite a long time to get to that. I had to make lots of mistakes in the process. And I come back to what I was saying before. That's taken time. And when you're building a startup and you're possibly not paying yourself, one thing that is a really precious commodity is time. And so again, this is what ProBo is trying to do, is to cut down on that time that it takes you to build that community. So I think marketing's a really big one. I think another one is thinking about the type of business that you're trying to build, and what are the legalities around doing that. Because anybody can go and register their business, but there's lots of different types of business you can register, and it may not seem important today, but a year, 5 years down the line, the way in which you structured that to start with may have a massive impact upon your earnings, your tax implications, all of the, your relationship with your business partners down the line. So if somebody can say to you at the beginning, okay, these are the things that you need to be thinking about. You need to project yourself forward 5 years and go, okay, where do you see that business being? Rather than, okay, you want to set up a business today, let's just go for it. So I think, there's a few really key fundamentals that, it may not fall into your skill set, because if you've come from a corporate background, or indeed, if you've come straight out of university and you've got a great idea, you don't necessarily have like the fundamentals, to hand, and that's what community can help you with.
Well, speaking of building a community, what are certain things, because I understand the power of it, right? Not only are you able to facilitate different relationships, but also just build an amazing network, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that I've done with my podcast, and I just love it. And it's just been so impactful, being able to open up doors like I've never been able to, figure it out, right? I can't open them
Right.
myself, right? Someone has to be in that bigger arena, and they open that door for me, allowing me to be in that bigger arena. And so my question is, building this, right? You have this amazing passion. I can hear it from your voice. What helps you build this amazing community? What were some outreach? What were some certain techniques that helped you kind of bring all these like-minded individuals together that are facing all the same problem and difficulty? What did that journey look like for you?
Well, I'm still on that journey, but what I think empathy is a really important one, because building your own business is a really highly emotional experience. It's a professional thing you're doing, but you feel it emotionally. And so knowing there are other people out there who are empathizing with what you're going through, and let's face it, that most small business owners go through, a core set of emotions that are exactly the same. And it's worry about paying the electricity bill. It's self confidence if it's not going as fast as you want it to. There's a few things out there. So what I've tried to do all the way through is to talk about stuff that I think people are going to relate to. And I've done various videos myself through Instagram, talking about, how lonely it can be, what it feels like at 4 a.m. when you wake up in the morning. And I mean, so many people came back to me on this and said, yeah, I really get that. 4 a.m. in the morning, everything gets totally out of proportion, right? But it's the time at night when you're going to wake up and your business is going to be going round and round in your head. And you're not going to be able to solve any of it at that moment unless you actually get up and go and sit at your desk. So all you're going to do is worry about it and get it totally out of proportion. So I posted about this on video. So many people came back and go, oh my God, I'm glad I'm not the only one that does that. And so it's just really simple things like that made people go, great, it's not just me, I'm not alone on this one. And then I did more practical stuff, like as I say, I worked in the corporate world, and I used to do a lot of travel and stay in nice hotels and all the rest of it. And then now I'm doing it for myself. If I go to another city and I'm staying in a hotel, I'm going right to cheapest first when I'm clicking on the hotel, and that's new, and that's what you do when you're starting up your own business. You cut whatever costs you can, but so I posted a video about, well, this, I'm staying in this really quite basic hotel, but it's in an area of a city I would never have gone to before. So, hey, this is really cool. I'm actually seeing a city, as it really is, as opposed to the central business district. And so it's just stuff that people can get if they're in that same position. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to create empathy. And so I try and create it through the social media approach. And then I want people to have that within the ProBo community themselves.
Well, what I'm noticing is there's just huge opportunity with the platform business model, right? Which is basically a model where it's just like Lyft and Uber, where they don't actually have any service. It's more of just facilitating the supply and demand of that, which is kind of what, and it's just a community, right? And that's really what it comes down to. And, like you said, you are focusing on building that community and obviously giving some sort of tactics and strategies in order to do that, because you understand the power behind it, which is beautiful. And again, the thing is, you're doing it out of a good heart, which of course you don't have to worry about monetization, because at some point you'll worry about that later on. But also, like you said, it's like you got to cut the cost, but that's part of your journey, right? That's the part of the strategy.
That's it. And that's the same for any startup. It's cash flow.
100%. I love it. Now, kind of talk to you a little bit about, like, with your background, you were in corporate America for many years. Okay. And how were you able to use some of your tactics or skills that you used or you had and developed? And now how is that being able to, how you're able to leverage those skills with this new business?
Sure. Well, I think, wherever you've worked, if you have, there's a lot of people coming out of university and going straight into business. And I think that, it's amazing, because that generation have got an outlook on life that's very, very different and much more, I think, go-getting than maybe previous generations had. But I think the challenge there is that if you haven't worked in a corporate environment, you haven't picked up perhaps business instincts. And I think, sometimes you need to rely on what your gut is saying to you in terms of making decisions. And so I'd say that's a big part of it. Now, I worked for a big global international financial newspaper and website for over a decade, and I was doing sales there, and then I managed big teams, and so I picked up, I guess, people skills, and I think that's a really important part of when you're going into community. It's really, really important how to treat people and to talk to people. But I do think I know what I do, and I know what I was employed to do. But when you work in larger organizations, you pick other stuff up while you're there, and it becomes part of your instinct. And I think part of how you make judgment professionally. And I suppose that's, I hope, what I've been able to bring to creating ProBo. Now, as I said to you, Christian, I've made lots of mistakes along the way so far, and I'm sure I'll make lots more because I don't have all the skills. But I hope that my judgment helps me to analyze stuff, effectively now, so that when I'm faced with a big decision, I can go, okay, I know how to weigh this up, and I know how to. I might not have the answer, but I know how to get myself as close as possible to having the answer through the experience I've had working for larger organizations.
Yeah, you're so true on that, because like you said, you have to have like a paradigm shift when you're coming into more of a business world, right? However, though, it's not like it's a negative thing. It's just something that you have to acquire, right? And that's why I was asking, like, obviously corporate to leverage some of those skills, and then obviously deploying them toward the business that you have, which is incredible. And I appreciate you sharing that a little bit. Rupert, love this conversation and just being able to share kind of what ProBo has done, what they are doing right now, and building that communicating, facilitating, and that paradigm shift of saying, hey, you know what, it's adding value to other individuals, and really we all rise forward. How can they reach out to you? Where can they reach out to your community? If you could share that with our audience.
Okay, well, go onto the site. They can reach out to me through there's a contact us section on the ProBo.co site. Just click on that, send an email. It'll come straight through to me. I can connect directly with them on that. Alternatively, go onto the register on the site, and they can anybody can get in touch with anybody on the site. You just click on their profile picture. It takes you through to their profile page. And then there's a contact button on there. Alternatively, we've got social media channels. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, at ProBo.co, all written in letters. Start to follow us, start to see what we're posting. We try and post stuff that's interesting and useful. So yeah, lots of ways of getting in contact. I mean, I'd be delighted to hear from any of your listeners, viewers who would like to have a chat about community, would like to have a chat about what ProBo might be able to do for them. I'd love to talk.
Awesome, guys. And those links will be in the description below. So make sure you click on that and just be part of that community. Even if you're at 7 figures or low 6 figures, it doesn't matter. The reality is that you can all add value to other individuals, like we were just talking about, right? It may be, hey, you know what? You're at low 6 figures, but this person has an amazing skill, and you need that skill to acquire, and you can add value to that individual and help him grow as well. And you have to start thinking that way in collaboration and partnership. And again, Rupert, I just appreciate the value that you brought in, and really just that paradigm shift, explaining the power of community, power of network, and why, collaboration and partnership. That's really what it comes down to. Is there any last words of wisdom that you'd like to share with our audience before we let you go?
Yeah, I just think in the world we now live in, barriers are coming down. People are becoming more open to each other, and people are really, really benefiting through doing that. So it doesn't matter if we're talking about professionally or personally or whatever it is, but I think just, and I've learned this through this journey I've been on. Be open to people, and you'll be amazed at what opportunities that throws up that you hadn't seen coming.
Awesome, guys. And that is my friend Rupert Lane, ProBo.co. And that is Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. Until next time, remember, be uncommon if you can.
Yo, this is Christian D. Evans, Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. We thank you so much for listening to this amazing episode. If you feel and you know that this was valuable to you, please show some love to our amazing guest by liking this, by commenting on this, by making sure that you do a nice 5-star review, and just show some love to our guest. That'd be really awesome. Also, make sure you share this with a friend, a family, a colleague, someone that you believe would bring value to their life right now. And guys, we just want to say thank you again for just being part of our community. If you want to have more resources, don't be afraid. Go to christiandevans.com. You can actually schedule a phone call with me, or you can send me an email at christian.evans@beUncommonIfYouCan.com. That's christian.evans@beUncommonIfYouCan.com. Always love to hear some feedback, and let me know what is the number 1 or 2 things that you are struggling in your business and your life, and we'll make sure we have those conversations. Guys, that is Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast, and until next time, remember, be uncommon if you can. Cheers.